Welcome to the global phenomenon, Surviving the Survivor, where we're all just trying to survive in a rough world.
It is a big week for us all around, Karm. We have our most high-profile guest coming up on the show today, which we'll get to in a minute. And tomorrow, we are guest speaking at Florida International University. This is our first guest speaking, at least from me. You're shaking your head no.
No, it's not guest speaking. We are the keynote speakers.
Oh, excuse me. We are the keynote speakers at FIU. Now, I hope people at FIU are listening to this after I speak, which they will. I thought FIU was going to be like Middlesex County College in New Jersey, like a small, tiny, nothing college. Just by coincidence, the president stepped down this week, and I had to go there for my 7th job. And when I got there, I could not believe the size of this campus. It is like where my kids went to private school in L.A. No, it's actually like...
it's a compound.
It's a compound. I was joking because my kids' private school in L.A. was basically like University of Michigan. But this is a huge school.
Okay, Joel, let's go to the main topic.
What is the main topic?
The main topic is what is awaiting us today.
Carmela, before we get to that, let me just tell you, I woke up to oral pain this morning on the left side of my mouth, and I was having a dream that all my teeth from my middle front tooth all the way to the back left of my top of my mouth, my teeth were crushed.
Joel, don't you wear that protector?
I do, and it hurt when I woke up. I must have been grinding, but people say that it is a sure sign of anxiety when you're having dreams about your teeth being crushed.
Joel.
And I was trying, hold on, I'm not done with my dream, Karm, and I was trying to call you on a payphone. For those of you who are under the age of 40, that is something that you put dimes and or quarters into, and you pull off of a cable, this handle, and you press buttons to call a person. And I was calling you on that payphone, and I could not dial the number. I could not get to you. And my mouth was bleeding, and I was suffering. And the last thing I remember before my web designer called me from California after I threatened to sue him, saying that his bosses are yelling at him, the last thing I remember is that I was threatening to sue the dentist. Can you analyze this for a moment?
Yes. You called me because you and I have something to do today. Mm-hmm. We have to talk to the Tiger King's main character, and the tigers have very big teeth.
Carmela just blew it, but in a sense she didn't. Coming up next on the main Schmooze, one of the most exciting guests we have had here on Surviving the Survivor. You heard it correctly from Carmela. We have Carole with an E, Carole Baskin of Tiger King, the most successful documentary show period in Netflix history, with 64 million people who saw it just in the month that it came out, last April or April 2020 of the pandemic. She is coming right up on the other side on the main Schmooze, and you'll be shocked to know Carmela had never heard of the show or her. We'll get into that next.
Do you want to help my son? His company, Content Partners Media, specializes in brand video and content creation for innovative companies and others. Please go to www.contentpartnersmedia.com and hire him. I repeat, please go to www.contentpartnersmedia.com.
Welcome back to Surviving the Survivor. It's time now for the main Schmooze.
So, Karm, unless you live in Moldova or you, everyone else has heard about Tiger King. We told you about Tiger King, and you had no clue what it was. How is that even possible? Because you watch the news and you watch TV. How did you not know about it?
It's a good question for which I know it was, in hindsight, all my grandchildren who are college age, they are telling me that, what you didn't know. It was one of those huge misses. As a matter of fact, I have to tell you one funny thing.
I think I know what it is. Go ahead. What is that one funny thing, Karm?
When you told me that we are interviewing the one of the people in this documentary who is known all over the country and has millions of followers, I immediately went on Netflix and looked for Lion King.
You were Googling and looking for Lion
King. True story. And my granddaughters are here from New Jersey. They saw me do this. They were rolling laughing, that I didn't look.
And you obviously remain confused because you are wearing a leopard print shirt today in honor of the great Carole Baskin. Carole, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. It's so great to be here with you.
We really appreciate you doing this. So, again, unless you're my mother or a refugee in Moldova, you know about this. But so you were prepping for the Lion King, but Carmela, this is in fact the Tiger King woman, Carole Baskin. Netflix, just to give you perspective here, the Tiger King in April 2020 was watched by a staggering, this is when it first came out in 2020, a staggering 64 million households. The streaming giant confirmed that. It held on to the #1 spot on Netflix top 10 list for 25 consecutive days, which is unheard of. Carole Baskin, who is on the flip side of the camera today, is an American animal rights activist and CEO of Big Cat Rescue. That is a nonprofit animal sanctuary based near Tampa, Florida, where it is freezing cold today, and she's wishing she was in Miami. Baskin became an instant celebrity after being featured in the 2020 Netflix true crime documentary series, which became really part of, and you'll like this word, Carmela, the zeitgeist of the strange times we entered into that year in 2020. Now, for those who are in Moldova, it follows Baskin's escalating feud with Oklahoma-based private zoo owner Joe Exotic. You know all that. Following Tiger King, Baskin received, and I believe continues to receive, abuse online after speculation that she was involved in the disappearance of her husband. Her catchphrase, "Hey, all you cool cats and kittens," also became a meme as a result of Tiger King. Carole is well known as well, which we're going to talk about, for her appearance on Dancing with the Stars, featuring what else? Her dancing to the cover song, Eye of the Tiger. Carole, first things first, Valentine's Day is coming up. Karm, I need to get you and my wife a gift. Honestly, I don't really celebrate Valentine's Day, but I will. But I know at Big Cat Rescue you do, and it is Max and Mary Ann anniversary. Who are Max and Mary Ann, and what do you do if you want to celebrate their anniversary on Valentine's Day?
Max and Mary Ann are a couple of bobcats who were rescued from different situations. And exotic cats are solitary by nature, so they don't want to share space for the most part. But if they come to us when they're young enough, we're able to introduce them. And that's what happened with them. They had come from two different parts of the country, but they were both youngsters and they were making eyes and flirty noises with each other. And so we decided to try and introduce them, which was a very long process before we could actually open the gates and see what happened. And it was just a tearjerker. It was so amazing. So every year we celebrate Max and Mary Ann on Valentine's Day because that was their anniversary. I love their names too.
I love their names.
My dogs are Mabel and Ethel, so I appreciate I appreciate Max and Mary Ann. Now, you have literally done a countless number of interviews. I mean, the list it's innumerable. What is something that people do not know about you? We want you to break news on here so we go viral and get 40 million subscribers by the end of this. So no pressure on you, but what is something people don't know?
There's just probably nothing that people don't know about me at this point. And part of that is because every day I release a day from my diary. I've been keeping a diary since I was a child. And so on YouTube, every single day I put out another day, and I'm up to about 2016. So I guess the only thing that you might not know about me are some of the behind the scenes work I've done from 2016 until now to try and protect big cats. And some of those things I can't talk about because they're still in the process.
Is there any part of that you can talk about?
That I haven't talked about elsewhere?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard.
Don't strain yourself. We are happy with talking, period.
The interview is over. Now, let me ask something. In all this, Karm, I'll let you get your chance. Hold on a sec.
All right.
Do you feel like because of the show and because of all the insanity that kind of swirled around it, do you feel like your cause, which is animals, kind of got lost in the mix? Do you feel they're kind of like the victims in a way of all this?
Well, I really did. After Tiger King came out, what my husband and I binge watched it like everybody else because we could not believe what we were seeing. That was not at all what we had been a party to for the past 5 years that it was being filmed. And so we were as shocked as anybody. But at the end of it, we just turned to each other and said, well, that was a missed opportunity, because it was our understanding the whole purpose of this was going to be to show how abusive the cub petting was and how it's causing the extinction of tigers in the wild. And that's not the message people got. All people got out of that was questioning whether or not I killed my husband, which was stupid. Anybody could look 5 minutes into research and find that that was blown way out of proportion. But up until yesterday, I was really angry about Netflix doing what I thought was so much harm to the mission and to tigers in general and all big cats. And then they came out with 2 articles back to back on their ta-dum, which is like ta-dum when that thing starts up. So they have a blog called ta-dum. And they did one piece last month that I just found out about yesterday about how horrible it is to do cub petting. And they used all of the sequences from Tiger King. And then yesterday they posted another one talking about how if you want to save big cats, you need to support the Big Cat Public Safety Act, which is the bill I've been trying to get passed since 1998. So we got part of it done in 2003, but we've been trying to fix the loopholes since then. So I'm just overjoyed that they have made public the fact that we need to get this bill passed in order to protect these big cats. The sad part of that is it's probably not going to be read by 63 million people.
Why do you think they kind of did an about face there and did that? Because it doesn't seem like that was really their interest.
I don't know why they did what they did in the first place, but I know there has been such a huge outcry from people who love animals saying that the tigers were totally glossed over in Tiger King and that they were the real losers in that show because people didn't get the truth about how close we are to losing them in the wild.
Well, I am very cynical about TV and news, maybe because our son works there for 25 years. But I think the saying, if it bleeds, it leads.
Correct.
So they were just looking for blood. That's what they were doing instead of looking to protect the animals.
I bet you have some insight on this too, because of your being a survivor of the Holocaust. The media was so controlled during that period of time. And I think that's why so many people did horrible things that they never would have done otherwise, because they were not getting the facts. And it's the same thing with the big cats. People are not getting the facts that we have to stop cub petting right now, or we are going to lose the tiger from the entire planet.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, look what's going on, and I don't want to make this too political right now, but just with the pandemic and the crazy bipartisanship in this country, and sometimes it feels, Carmela, do you agree, like we're lost in time back in that era?
I know why I never watched this program, because I like to, I analyze first of all, I was only 5 years old when the Holocaust happened. I was kind of carried through the Holocaust. But since we are also a species in danger of extinction, the survivors, I'm asked to talk here or talk there because all the people who were adults at that time are all dead. It was 85 years ago. So I'm like also protected species or endangered species like your tigers in a certain way. And I agree with you that the reason I didn't even know about this really is because it will sound very funny. My husband, who is 88, who is in a wheelchair, his father, he and I watch romance movies.
That's what I was getting at. That's why you didn't watch Tiger King.
That's
big,
what we watch. No, I mean, I like to speculate about other things, but when we want to enjoy our evenings, we get off everything else and we watch.
They're into rom-coms. Carole, before I forget, in the 47 million interviews that you've done, have you ever been, number one, interviewed by a mother and son? And have you ever been interviewed by a Holocaust survivor?
Well, certainly never by a Holocaust survivor. And I can't think of anywhere it was a mother and son. There were some fathers and sons. But no mothers and daughters, no mothers and sons.
So what you're saying is this is the most unique platform.
No, this is the most edible thing she ever saw.
Edible.
He has 3 children and a very lovely wife, so it's not as sick as it sounds.
So Carole, you said something interesting, which I didn't know, but granted, I'm not a diehard Tiger King person. I did watch the series, but you said it was in production for 5 years. Can you tell us, like, the genesis of this? I mean, what happened 5 years prior? Did these 2 producers approach you, and how did they pitch it to you?
We get pitched by producers all the time. And during the same period of time that we were working with Eric Goode and Rebecca Chaiklin, who ended up producing what became known as Tiger King, they said it was called Stolen World, and that it was going to be about how people in America mostly are making pets out of these animals and exploiting exotic animals and causing the extinction of them. And so we were working with them on that. We were working with Mike Weber on a piece called The Conservation Game that actually got to the genesis of what caused all of this tiger cub petting in America. And it was these talk show hosts that were bringing on people like Jack Hanna and Dave Salmoni and all of these other guys, Steve Irwin, who were showing off with wild animals, and people would think, oh, that's so cool. I either want to pet one or I want to be that guy. And so they could go out and pay their $20 and do that. And so he produced an excellent film called The Conservation Game that exposes that. We were working on another project also for 5 years called Hidden Tiger, and it talks more about the tiger going extinct in the wild and how all of these things we do in captivity and in America are causing that. And so we were doing the same thing with the producers of Tiger King. They said they were working on a piece that was going to show the exploitation of these animals and why people shouldn't be paying to pet them or having them as pets. And that's not at all what Tiger King turned out to be. But to their benefit, I think that probably was their initial plan, because they had originally thought that they were going to sell it to CNN, which did they did Driving Extinction, but they also did
the whale movie. Blackfish. Yes. Yeah.
And in fact, that's what they had actually said, was it was going to be the Blackfish for big cats. And so that's why we were thrilled to work with them. And every time they wanted to come out, we talked to them. We sent them to all of the experts. You only saw one of the experts, which was Brittany Pete from PETA. You didn't see any of the other people talking about tiger protection in that film, because when they couldn't sell it to CNN, I think they decided for Netflix they needed to dumb it down.
Did you think do you think it was a financial factor? You think Netflix threw a lot of money at them, and so they kind of made it a little more salacious because of that?
No, I don't think so. You should ask this question.
Carole, I say this every day. The difference between God and my mother is God does not know everything. Carmela, you are the expert.
I didn't say I'm the expert. I don't think you should put the question like that, because you don't want to indict all of Netflix, and the answer is yes. They did it for profit.
I want to indict Netflix. Why? What do I care? They're not my boss.
Yeah, they soon will be.
Until they pick up my podcast.
Exactly.
So, Carole, how is fame treating you? Is it everything you had hoped for and more, or is it a lot worse?
It was never my intention to be famous. My intention has always been to end the abuse of big cats and save them in the wild. That's all I set out to do. And all of this has been a huge diversion from that. And I think it's really fortunate for me that it happened during COVID, because by virtue of the fact that I wasn't going out to restaurants or going out in public anywhere, I wasn't being bombarded. And so the only times when I really get bombarded are the times when I have no other choice. Like I just came back from 2 trips to DC to lobby for our federal bill. And every time I get on a plane, it's an hour getting on and an hour getting off because of all of the people that want to come up and do selfies. And so it really detracts from being able to do the things that I need to do. But I think the good that has come out of that, not celebrity status for me, but celebrity for the film itself, is that before Congress didn't even know we had a problem with people petting tigers. And now they know. Mm-hmm. So at least when I go in there, they don't think I'm crazy. They know that there is this problem and there are a bunch of unhinged people out there in charge of dangerous predators in neighborhoods.
So tell us, Karm, just tell us more about, we love to interrupt each other. We keep a track.
That's our trademark.
But Carole, tell me, so what were you doing in DC specifically? Who were you meeting with? And a little more, enumerate a little more, because a lot of people don't know. I mean, how big a problem is this, this petting of big cats?
I started working on this in 1998 because so many people were dumping tigers, especially. When I say tigers, it's not just tigers, it's tigers and lions and ligers, which is a cross between the two, or the 3 main cats that people were breeding, using, and then dumping. And what happens is they can only use the cub between about the ages of 8 to 12 weeks. USDA says if it's under 8 weeks old, it doesn't have all of the immunities that it needs from its mother. And if it's over 12 weeks old, it can take a finger off a child. So in order to have these pay-to-play schemes where you pay to have your picture made with a cub, they only have about a 1-month shelf life. So that means they have to leave the mothers. And you saw this in Tiger King. Well, you didn't, Carmela, but in Tiger King, this one scene.
Guilty as charged. But you know what? Can I just tell you something? Can I call you Carole?
Yes.
Okay. I think
Carole with an E.
I heard about you 4 days ago, and I really, I love to show off. This is our 50th.
Karm would have been the one 50th person on the flight that ignored you completely.
No, I would not have. No, but this is our 50th episode, and what I do, I try to prepare for it and then impress the hell out of our interviewees by asking appropriate questions, and then I feel I did a great job, or some ego trip like that. But I feel that because we had no time, I tried to watch episodes and I read up your resume and so forth. But I never understood when I told our grandchildren are here. We have a bunch of them here. 3 are here on a visit. And when they heard that we are interviewing you, they said, "The Carole Baskin?" I said, "Yes. Why?" And that kind of easy, because I don't have the background to know that 64 million, which is like very hard for me to put my arms around, that 64 million people watched you. For me, you are, and I watched you now, and for me, you are a fellow human traveler who is trying to work on a good cause, and that's it, and then I don't feel this intimidation that many people feel from celebrities. But people are telling me you are, at this point, like totally famous.
She's almost as famous as you, Karm.
Well, I will be when I'm 99.
Just to put it in perspective, 64 million people is a lot of Super Bowl stadiums for all those dumb Americans out there. Now, Carole, this was interesting to me. So you said you and your husband binge watched this when they didn't even give you an advanced release of the show. You actually had to watch this and buy a Netflix subscription to this. Is this what you're telling me?
We already had a Netflix subscription, but when the teasers came out about a week before, I think it wasn't long. Well, I didn't know about it until about a week before. And when I saw the teasers, we contacted the producers, all of the producers that we had been working with, and we said, "Who's working on that show?" Because everybody in Hollywood knows what everybody else is working on. Mm-hmm. And nobody was talking about doing a show about Joe Exotic. So we were like, what the heck is this? Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, and the people that I told you about that we were working with, they were like, not me, not me, not me. And the people that actually did it were like crickets on the other end of the line. They didn't want to talk about it. And so that's why we sat there and binge watched it, because from one episode to the next, we could not believe that was the twisted story. I've never even spoken to Joe Exotic. Mm-hmm. So for it to be a feud between me and Joe Exotic was just like, that was bizarre.
So you literally have never spoken with him in your life?
Never. My husband was the person who dealt with the lawsuit and dealt with all of Joe's threats and dealt with the FBI and dealt with all of the attorneys and everything else. I do what I do, trying to get this bill passed, but all of that was my husband. So, it should have been Joe versus Howard, not Joe versus Carole, if anybody was paying attention to any of the facts.
What is the biggest misconception about tigers that you're looking to dispel?
After Tiger King, the threats that I got were just amazing. I have 3 hours of the most vile threats against my life that YouTube made me take it down. I put it over on Vimeo because YouTube wouldn't even allow it. And what people were screaming about in there was that they hated the fact that I didn't set all these tigers loose when we rescue them. People seem to believe that I can go into horrible places like the GW Zoo, rescue 100 tigers, and then take them out in Oklahoma and just turn them loose. And that's the way we should handle this problem. And it's not legal. None of these cats who were born in cages are legal to be set free. And so I think what I gathered out of that is people think that all of this captive breeding is actually staving off the extinction of the tiger when it's actually causing the extinction of the tiger.
You know what's crazy? So I was a reporter prior to going to the network. I was a local Fox 5 reporter in New York, and I remember doing multiple stories on guys living in the Bronx who were caught with like tigers in their apartments.
In
their apartments. And take it from me, it is definitely not a big apartment. I just never realized this was such a big problem. And I'm going to butcher this, but I was listening to my competitor, Joe Rogan, a few weeks ago.
It's competitive.
Who I will overtake, especially if you break news on the show, Carole.
He has a rich fantasy life.
But he said something crazy, like the state of Texas has more, I don't want to say tigers or lions specifically, but animals in the state of Texas than exists like in some crazy proportion in Africa. And I was just blown away. I mean, so how big a problem, like how many people own tigers in this country illegally?
Well, it's legal is why they are able to own them. Yeah, that's what we're trying to change. But there are only 3,900 tigers left in the wild. And USDA only ever counted tigers one time, and that was in 2004. And they only counted tigers that were in USDA licensed facilities. So like your zoos or sanctuaries were all licensed by USDA. And even the little nasty roadside zoos, like the ones you saw in Tiger King, they still have to have a USDA license. Mm-hmm. And so they they counted in 2004 that there were over 5,000 tigers in America. Versus back then, there was only about 1,900 left in the wild. So a lot of work has been done to save the tiger in the wild. But meanwhile, in the US, what we started doing when we started trying to get this federal bill passed was I had to figure out how big is this problem? Mm-hmm. And I spent a year with one of the interns from the International Fund for Animal Welfare going through every social media post that we could find. And tigers, and we just did this with tigers because it's easier with them. Tiger stripes are just like your thumbprint. There's no two that are the same. And so we might see 200 pictures of people posing with this cub as it's getting older, but it's only one cub. We can't count it 200 times because the stripes match up and we know it's just that one cub. Mm. And so by doing that, we were able to say for sure there were at least 200 tiger cubs being bred every single year on top of that 5,000 that we already had in the US in 2004. And so you can imagine if there's, like you've probably seen those charts about spaying your pets. Like if you don't spay your cat, it's going to be like generations of, it's just like that with tigers because they're cats, they breed like cats. And so what happens is because they can only use them for that 1 week window, as soon as they get to be about 12 to 16 weeks, now they're not a profitable item anymore. They're a huge liability in food and vet care. And so they will often just give them away to people as pets. And then the people that get them, they're getting an animal about this big. It's pretty handleable. And by the time it's a year old, it's 200 pounds. And by the time it's 5 years old, it's 500 pounds. And nobody is prepared to have that in their apartment, as you noticed, or even in their backyard. They're pound for pound, they're 12 times stronger than we are. You can't control that cat or show off with it anymore once it's past about 6 months old. So that's how they end up being dumped into sanctuaries like mine, and why we needed a federal bill, because in 2003, I had to turn away 312 big cats, in addition to the ones that we rescued. And every other year, that number was doubling. So we got the first part of our bill passed in 2003. And for the very first time, the number we had to turn away dropped to like 160. And it's continued to drop as we and these other groups have gotten state bans passed.
I imagine with the popularity of the show, more people are trying to offload these big cats with you, I assume, because now they know how to reach you. Is that right?
Everybody knew where to reach us before.
Okay.
When people say you're famous, it's like, well, I'm maybe famous to people who weren't in this industry, but everybody who was in this industry knew Big Cat Rescue.
So forgive my ignorance. You said it's illegal, but you're talking about, it's legal, excuse me.
And legal.
You say it's legal. Are you talking about for these kind of roadside zoos, or can Joe Smith or Joel Waldman, can I go and purchase a big cat legally right now if I wanted to?
So the bill that we got passed in 2003 made it illegal to sell a big cat across state lines as a pet. And back when we started this, there were about 5 states that had bans or partial bans. So like in the state of Florida, it says you can't have a tiger as a pet, but if you get a USDA license, you can have it. Well, the USDA license is only name, address, telephone number, and $35. It's not a big deterrent. But still, you had to have that license so that at least the government knew where your animal is. So during all these years since 2003, we've now gotten to the point where there's only 5 states who don't have bans or partial bans, which is why those numbers continue to go down as far as the number of cats that we have to turn away. But there are still 5 states where there are no rules. And if you've ever tried to travel with a pet, everything you have to do for vaccinations and everything else, none of that's required with your pet tiger, which is just absurd to me, but it's still legal. So in North Carolina, Oklahoma, Nevada, Wisconsin, and Alabama, in those states, if you live there, yes, you could buy your pet tiger. But what was happening and what we discovered in the trial against Joe Exotic, his husband, John Finley, testified that at least 100 times what they did was they took that little cub that had just aged out of being able to be used for petting, drove it across state lines, took cash for it, and nobody was the wiser until there's a tiger running loose in the neighborhood.
Did you know this, Carmela?
No. I'm 82, and what fascinates me about the world, and I'm so grateful to him during the same 2020 when you were doing your presentation there with the documentary, he asked me to do this and to meet every Wednesday and interview people. And
we have 64 viewers. Go on.
No, he's
minus
kidding.
the million. Go on.
No, but what is interesting that there are worlds out there, and every week I learn so much. I couldn't believe it. 82, I'm like learning. And I knew about, for example, I'll tell you something cute that maybe you are familiar with. Brigitte Bardot, the French actress. Did you ever hear about her being an animal activist?
Yeah.
For the last 50 years, she's an animal activist. And she's now also in her 80s, but she has been doing work on this with passion. And, even for example, I was wondering, the circus, what is the Barnum
Bailey Circus?
They closed down. Did they close down to protect the animals? Because the animals were exploited in the circus. Is this the reason? What I'm saying is that it has so many different aspects and angles but I never heard of the tigers, story happening the way now I learned through your story. And they're beautiful animals. We forget to mention that they are beautiful animals. And
Carmel, you've just broken the Guinness Book of World Records for the longest question. You just beat Anderson Cooper.
I'm past Anderson.
So what is the question? What is the question?
No, I just said that I know that this is her passion, and it's a beautiful thing to do. I admire it, and I'm learning from this.
So
for example, in the Mirage Hotel in Las Vegas,
correct.
I was there once. You remember MGM.
Yes.
You remember there were these.
They used
lions.
They used to have lions.
Lions.
Correct. Now they have a statue of a lion. But Carol, let me ask you a question. So
maybe there was progress.
You get this cub. I was going to say Joe Smith. Let's say you're Joe Exotic. You get this cub and you're sitting in, I don't know, Oklahoma in your house. And now this cub turns to 200 pounds. And a year later, is it 500 pounds? Or
500.
500 pounds. Are they, I know you can train a tiger, but because of their, obviously their breeding and their history, et cetera, are they trainable, or is there a decent chance that they could turn on you because they're essentially, obviously, made to live in the wild?
They will always kill you in the end. And actually, this goes back to Carmela's question that was in that long question.
Thank you. Finally, somebody understands me.
Someone admits it.
Well, she asked, what caused the circus to close? And what caused the circus to close was the fact that all of the animal activists were working together to try and ban what they call the bull hook. So if you could imagine a crowbar, that's what they use to beat those baby elephants when they're little, so that they are terrified of this crowbar shape. And then when they take them out into the ring, they are beating them under this soft part of their arm with that prod to make them go where they want them to go. So what we couldn't get the government, the Congress, to ban the circus from using animals. So what we had to do was go after the weapons and say, you can't use this weapon. And who can say, no, we think they should have weapons like that. So they banned the weapons in a few of the states. And what happened was they couldn't make, because they're traveling all over the United States all but 2 weeks of the year, they had to start bypassing states, which meant they were losing money taking this show on the road. And so it's the same thing with the tigers. The only way that they are able to train them is they have to take them away from their mother as soon as they're born. They never get to go back to their mother, which means they get a crappy diet. There's no tiger milk that's available at the stores. And then they beat those cubs and use cattle prods, electric cattle prods, to shock them every time they do something, so that cat grows up believing that the person who is telling them to do something is going to brutally harm them if they don't do it. That's how they train them. And when you see them in the ring, they often, they can't take a cattle prod into the ring. So what they take is like a stick with ribbons all tied around it, but it's the same shape. And the cat knows that shape and knows that that's the thing that hurts them. And so they'll do what they have to do. But once they get to be about 5 years old, that's when they can be 500 pounds. That's when they become adults, and that's when they kill their owners. And that's what happened with Siegfried and Roy. They used that cat
I know them.
just a month too long, and it just about did him in.
Wow. So this is fascinating. Number one, I got to just say as an aside that now that I'm talking to you and learning about this, it enrages me that the focus was on that moron Joe Exotic this whole time, because it really should be about these animals. The way they're mistreated. I'll probably get hate mail for that, but whatever, I don't care. So kudos to you for fighting for these animals the way you have. And despite the fame, despite the celebrity, I can tell it's really your passion and your focus. But what you just said was astonishing to me. Tigers will always kill the person in the end. Is that what you said?
Nobody ever keeps their pet tiger. In all of the years that we've been doing this, I can count on one hand the number of people who have kept their cats through the time that they have died of natural causes. And usually, even then, they die of natural causes around the age of 10 or 12. Here at the sanctuary, they live into their late teens and early 20s. But the private sector just doesn't know how to take care of an animal or provide for them. But still, by the time they're a year and a half, 2 years old, that's when they get relegated to some cage in the backyard because now the person can't handle them anymore, can't safely walk them on a leash or walk in with them to show off anymore. And that's when they usually get rid of them, is because it's not an ego prop anymore.
But if they don't get rid of them, ultimately you're saying the tiger will eventually turn on that owner?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just there's 700 cases of that on a page on our website, bigcatrescue.org/big cat attacks.
And is it just because they are meant to be in the wild and that's just what they want to do? So eventually they get fed up and will just go for your jugular, right? Is that how they get you?
Or the back of your neck. Yeah, that's how they typically do it. And in the wild, that's what they do. Their mothers raise them up, and then their mothers throw them out of the house while they're still juveniles and don't let them back into the territory. And if they do, they will kill each other for territory. Mm-hmm. They're just growing up to be who they are hardwired to be. You can't change that about a tiger or a lion or a big cat.
For my honeymoon, I actually went to Rwanda and Tanzania. In Rwanda,
he's in love with monkeys.
We went to see gorillas in the wild, and it was the most amazing experience of my life, where the animals are treated like royalty. You cannot mess with gorillas in Rwanda, and they take the law into their own hands there. They will.
Even that is a zoo, actually.
It's not a zoo. They live in the wild, in the rainforest. But then in Tanzania, we went to the Serengeti and saw these lions in the wild, and it was incredible. But you can just see their power, and how they're meant to live. And then you come to the zoo. And have you been to Africa?
My daughter has been a number of times, but for me, the hardest part of what I do is seeing the cats in cages here at the sanctuary, because I know how unfair this is. They did nothing wrong, and they're stuck in those cages for the rest of their lives because people wanted to see a cute little baby on display or to pet one. And it would just, I don't think I could even make it through the day if I were to see them living free and then have to see this every single day.
People suck, man.
He's a big
huge.
He wanted to adopt a monkey, and then now he has these 2 dogs that he thinks they are his children.
Carole, let me ask you, if I threw Carmela in her Lexus, which it looks like a bumper car, she's hit so many things.
I have it for 10 and a half years.
And we came up to Tampa. Would you show us around your big cat rescue?
Not until COVID has passed.
Okay.
COVID has really hit us hard. I mean, I lost half of my staff. I had to let them go because we had to feed the cats, and they got to be fed no matter what. And salaries were the easiest thing to cut. But we learned about 6 months into COVID that cats can actually catch COVID. And at a number of these zoos that have opened back up, now their cats are dying from just the public coming in and breathing in the same vicinity. So we have not allowed that to happen here.
That was my next question. So how badly are these cats being affected by COVID? And I assume there's no vaccine for them. What can you do for them?
Well, there is a vaccine, but the problem is it's very problematic, just like the human vaccine. So we have not used the vaccine yet on our cats. And the reason that our vet has chosen not to is because we work with all of the other accredited big cat sanctuaries. There's about a dozen of us in America, and we work together whenever there's a big rescue. And Big Cat Rescue always takes the oldest and the sickest cats because we have the best funding, we have the best vets, we have 2 hospitals, actually 3 hospitals now on site. And so we can take care of those animals better than the other sanctuaries. But as a result of that, our vet says these cats are so old and so frail, just catching them to vaccinate them could kill them. And so it's better if we can just keep people completely away from them until the main threat is passed.
And 2 things come to mind in my story journalistic career. A few weeks back, I actually covered something called the Banana Derby, which was funny to everybody. It was at a local fair, but animal rights activists were up in arms. It was little Capuchin monkeys riding on the backs of dogs on a racetrack. So, it's funny and you laugh, but it's cruelty to animals. They're stuck on there. And then there was a second thing what were we just talking about? Now I'm having one of your Alzheimer's.
Yeah, usually I have the senior moment. Today Joel chose to have one. He caught it.
Oh, so yesterday actually, I was working on a story. So a lot more.
He works locally on TV.
I work for the local station a few days a week, but there are a lot of pet owners, cat and dog, regular cats, not big cats, who are now calling the vet complaining of COVID-like symptoms in their animals. And it was incredible. I called literally about 21 or so veterinarians yesterday, and not one could talk to me or even get on the phone. These animal hospitals are so backed up, and I'm wondering, I mean, there's an uptick now in these sorts of cases, which sounds crazy. It sounds insane, but I saw it firsthand just by calling around to veterinarians. So I hope the tigers, stay safe. When I went to see these gorillas in Rwanda, one of the fascinating things about it was Diane Fossey, who lived there and nurtured a lot of these gorillas, actually learned the gorilla language. And the people who take you out to see the gorillas in the wild there, they all know the gorilla language. So as you're going, they start going, "Mwah, mwah," and eventually the gorillas start to respond. But when we got to there are 13 families of gorillas where we were. I think that's what they have in total, or maybe 26, but 13 where we were. And each family has like 10 or 12 members. And when we got close enough, our leader said, "Blah, blah, blah," and all of a sudden you heard the response, and we're like, "What is going on? What is it? What, you're talking gorilla." He said that the gorilla let him know that the infant was not feeling great. And so we had to keep an extra distance because of that. And I thought that was absolutely incredible. But that's...
And now you went into you are interviewing somebody who is doing wonderful things for tigers. I can just see you inviting somebody who is working with gorillas and tell them all about tigers.
So, Carole, why big cats, and why not giraffes, or why not chimpanzees, or why not snakes? How did you get so enamored by the big cats?
I think let me show off for 1 minute. I read that when you were little, you loved cats.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
The house cat type of cats, right?
There was literally a cat in the cradle.
You see, and I think that later when you became more adult, you realize that there are bigger cats out there, right?
Yeah, it was totally by accident. I never had any intention of working with big cats. My goal in life was to save domestic cats and kittens from being killed in shelters due to overpopulation. Because of my interest in domestic cats, that I ended up in vets' offices, which led me to rescuing native bobcats who get hit by a car or injured by a hunter. Then we can fix them up and set them free. Those are the only cats who are legal to set free, are the ones who were born in the wild. And then that led me to, I was at an auction buying llamas, and the guy next to me started bidding on a bobcat, and I told him that cat was going to tear his face off. And we ended up bringing her home because he was a taxidermist, which led us to fur farms, where we rescued all of the cats off of the fur farms. And then people started calling and saying, "Would you take my lion? Would you take my tiger?" And so all of this was my stupidity in thinking, well, I can fix that. And here I am 30 years later, still trying to fix it.
How was Dancing with the Stars?
Wait 1 second. I have to ask you this.
While you're asking that, how was Dancing with the Stars?
That was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I've never danced in my life before. And oh my Katniss, those people are athletes.
Yeah, we just had an Olympic figure skater on the show. She disqualified.
Anyway, since the epidemic, I really should not be supporting Bezos, but I buy everything on Amazon. Everything, like my husband's supplies and everything. So you said if we tell them that our charity is the Big Cat Rescue, right? Then they will give you 5% of what you purchased will go to that charity. Did I understand this right?
Yeah, if you go to smile.amazon.com, you only sign up one time, pick the charity, Big Cat Rescue, or any other charity that you want. And then every time you shop, they will send a kickback to your charity. And they don't charge you for it. It comes off of their end.
I added up one day how much I spend a year, and it's ridiculous.
Carole, before I know you got to run, last quick question. So they just announced Joe versus Carole is coming out based on this Wondery podcast called Joe Exotic Tiger King. It's going to star Kate McKinnon of Saturday Night Live. Yeah. What do you think of all this?
You know what the best thing of this would be is I hope it's wildly successful to the point that when she goes out in public, people think she's Carole Baskin and they forget who I was.
That's a great
Let
answer.
them shoot her.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't want her to be shot, but
It
she
was
can do
just
all the
my
selfies.
black humor.
Carm, you
It
know,
was just black humor.
one of the most popular Halloween costumes was Carole Baskin. The best part about Carole Baskin is she goes out and they're like, wow, this is awesome. You are spot on. You are spot on. And if there are problems with the costume, they have problems. So, Carole, thank you so much for doing this. Anything we can plug or anything you want to add before
Can we do anything for you other than my mother's contribution to Smile?
I have a fairly large
.com.
backyard with a lot of palm trees. I would love to watch a tiger or two if you need me to.
No, believe me, he doesn't. He doesn't.
Maybe the best thing people can do is go to bigcatact.com. If they're in the US, they can contact their member of Congress. We make it possible to set a tweet, an email, or they can call them. All they have to do is put in their name and address, and we will know who to call or to tweet or to email.
Awesome. Great luck with this whole initiative, getting big cats into safe territories, and appreciate the work you're doing. Karm, you usually go on every time someone needs to wrap.
Today, I don't go into a blog because I just second your motion.
Carole, I hope you enjoy this. And once the pandemic is over, I'm going to put Karm in the back of a station wagon and bring her up there, okay?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay,
In a
thanks.
cage.
We'll be right back with a new
Very
Schmooze.
nice meeting you. Very
Thanks.
nice
Same
meeting
here.
you. Thank you.
Welcome back. It's time for the news schmooze.
It's kind of weird that I never heard.
It is kind of weird that you never heard of Carole Baskin. Carmela, because as I said, unless you were living in Moldova, and even there, I think they know.
It was fun in Moldova. There is no COVID in Moldova.
Let me tell you something. Tiger King is literally the biggest pop culture sensation of arguably of the last decade. And how did you not hear of it? I just still don't understand that.
Well, let's continue. I don't know. I'll analyze and I'll get back to you later.
What did you think of Carole? Because this is the part of the show where we can talk about it, because we've actually now aired the interview. Did you like? She was very sweet.
Very honestly, I saw a few things on the internet after you told me on Monday, which today is Wednesday, that she's our guest.
You know, people are accused her of this murder and all. You know,
Let's not go there.
Let's not even speculate.
No,
but let me say this: she is correct in one thing for sure. The insanity of that show, and insanity sells, but the insanity of that show really did overshadow the primary reason she did the show, and her primary purpose, which is to save these big cats. I think you mentioned that through Amazon you can actually donate to these cats.
Yes, whenever if you go to smile.com and you sign up every time you are on Amazon.
Smile.com is probably a dentist, but you mean Amazon /smile or something along those lines.
Yes, the word
but
Amazon.
If you Google Amazon and big cat, you'll find it. But anyway, she's doing.
They give back to Bezos gives back 5% of your purchase to the.
Why do you think Bezos is doing that? He doesn't pay $1 in taxes. Why is he giving money to big cats?
You don't know what he does and he doesn't do. You didn't see his tax returns.
Jeff, you're welcome to come on my podcast anytime you want. Okay.
I'll protect you, Jeff.
On to the news schmooze. Spotify is taking Harry and Meghan's 18 million pound podcast. How many dollars is 18 million pounds, do you think?
I don't know.
I have no idea. It's
exchange
a lot.
rate.
Spotify is now taking
it's more than the dollars.
It's now they're taking the project into their own hands. They're hiring a host of in-house producers to finally help deliver content because shockingly, Meghan Markle had no clue what she was doing. Do you know that they were making £500,000 a minute? Spotify, if you're listening, and you should be, because this is the best new podcast of 2022, I will take £499,000 a minute, and I'll give you what you're getting right now, which is incredible content, not the crap that no one cares about the royal family that's slowly dying off, not so slowly. On to the next story, Karm.
I think, Joel, you are really looking forward to be beat up by somebody. Why are you saying these things?
Oh, by the way, we might both get death threats because of kind of throwing Joe Exotic under the bus, and I don't really...
I didn't throw him. I respect him enormously.
Carmela's going to get off and go, Joanne, what are you doing? I don't need someone coming to my apartment. Blah, blah. If you're thinking of hurting an 82-year-old Holocaust survivor, you're a sick person.
She can be a bitch. She can insult you. Yeah. She can carry on like a lunatic. But don't hurt her.
Come after me. I got 7 Glocks in my house. I dare you.
Okay. Don't say stupid things, especially everybody and his uncle have guns in Florida.
By the way, you see this? It's been irritating me the last couple of days. A little scar right there. That's from when I went shooting in Los Angeles. I still have a scar from the whatever you call that, the hammer. Okay, moving on with the news schmooze here. A truck crash in the U.S. This is actually a very interesting story, so pay attention, Karm. I focused on animals out of respect to Carole Baskin. You don't think there's any relation to Baskin Robbins, do you?
Continue. Her father was an army person.
A truck crash in the U.S. involving the transportation of around 100 monkeys to a laboratory has now sparked infection fears after a woman who came in contact was warned about diseases. The test monkeys were on their way to a laboratory here in Florida, of course. Everything is connected to Florida. It all happened when the truck crashed into a garbage truck on Friday near Danville, Pennsylvania, with 4 of the primates escaping. The incident allowed 4 monkeys, confirmed to be macaques, the chance to make a break for it as they managed to escape from their containers. According to Fox 56, which I'm surprised I don't work at.
It's a local station.
3 monkeys were captured and humanely euthanized. According to the American Association guidelines, they can F off for killing monkeys. But there is a monkey on the loose, and obviously you understand the fears people have because of COVID. There is actually major concern, and this is a growing news story, Carmela, which you will hear about, that these monkeys could quite possibly have been infected intentionally or unintentionally with viruses to be tested at this lab, and they got away. Are you worried? Are you worried?
Joel, why would I worry about a lonely monkey when there are millions of people infected? What do I need the monkey?
Because they might not have COVID. They might have like Ebola on crack, and now it's running around Pennsylvania, and some old lady is petting it in her backyard, and as her spleen and intestines are oozing out of her derriere, as you would say, now it's being, it's spreading through the country like wildfire. Not that I'm sensationalistic. Is that a word?
I think let's go to the 3 questions for Grandma.
We have 2 more stories. Another animal story for you. U.S. surgeons successfully transplanted a genetically modified pig heart into a living human for the first time earlier this month. It was a groundbreaking moment in the history of medicine, which is pretty amazing. Think about that. Think about it. God forbid my father had a bad heart.
Okay.
But now, do you know how they kept this pig heart beating during the lengthy operation? Do you have any idea? I bet you don't.
Well, just be relaxed.
You're looking at me blankly.
No. I think I know. With the same thing that they do other operations.
Absolutely not.
They found another pig and they inserted in the other pig.
Now you're getting kinky, Karm. Surgeons had to use a drug cocktail with an eyebrow-raising ingredient. Do you know what that eyebrow-raising ingredient was that they used? I will tell you. Cocaine, the stuff that you snort. Surgeons had to get permission from the Drug Enforcement Administration, otherwise known as the DEA, to use the nose candy. The cocaine name pops out because everybody thinks, oh my God, what is a cocaine doing in here? Mohammed Mahoudain, director of the cardiac xenotransplantation at the University of Maryland, told Vice. But turns out cocaine has a powerful and positive use. Have you ever tried coke, Karm, even back in the 60s?
No.
Never?
No.
Were you too scared?
Nobody even offered it to me.
Would you try it now?
I was totally out of that circle.
Would you and Roy take as they say,
No,
bump of cocaine?
I won't let Roy take anything that he will enjoy.
I've never had coke in my life. Dad would do it, I bet.
I would if
Dad's
I would.
a wild man.
If he wouldn't be married to me.
A few years ago, Dad was requesting a marijuana joint, which I got him from a close friend who will remain anonymous, Jay Littman. And Roy tried to light it, and it almost created a fire on his bed. Carmela extinguished it, destroyed it, and that was the end of that story. On to the last story, which I actually like this one quite a bit. I don't know why. This story made me kind of giggle in a sick, twisted way. A Minnesota man is charged with killing his roommate's emotional support ferrets. Did you know there was such a thing?
Yeah, no, emotional support ferrets, no. But only in America. We always used to say in Europe, only in America.
It told police that the roommate shot the caged animals with a BB gun, which would piss me off and would definitely piss off Carole Baskin because they quote-unquote smelled like shit. And they claimed that one of the ferrets was laughing at him. Is this guy a psychotic? The guy who did this?
And what happened? What happened? I didn't even listen. It's so stupid. I have no time. I am 82-year-old. My time on this planet is limited. I cannot listen to this.
One of the most interesting parts of this story, which is what I'm getting to. So the victim who owned the parrots was a guy named Maurice Gusky, 57, who lives in Duluth, where I hear it's beautiful this time of year.
They mentioned Duluth today in the news.
What about, that's where Bob Dylan is from.
No, it's so cold today that they couldn't even pronounce the word.
You have to have a heater to start your car like an hour ahead of time in Duluth. You know who loves Duluth? Matt Brode. Shout out to Matt Brode.
Okay.
But what struck me the most was not the ferrets who were murdered in cold blood, may this guy rot in hell, but the fact that his name is Levi Arnberg, 27. Do you think a Jewish person was responsible for the murder, or is this just a German name? This is his photo.
Let me see.
What do you think? Could a Jewish person be responsible for the mass murder of 4 ferrets?
I always preach how Jews are, there are all sorts of Jews like there are all sorts of Gentiles.
So you're saying it's possible. He doesn't look Jewish. He lives in Duluth. The chances, I would say, are about...
Well, what's his name? Bob Dylan lived
Bob Dylan was in Duluth.
Then he's Jewish.
All right. We'll be right back with 3 questions for Grandma.
It's time now for 3 questions for Grandma.
Karm, we haven't had a single technical issue or really a problem with the show today, which is making me exceptionally anxious.
No, we did.
We did? What was it? I feel better now.
Well, we were about 7 minutes late starting.
Well, yeah. That's expected, though.
But may I say, we didn't see the result yet. This time, it may be the whole thing will not work.
That's true, too. Carmela?
So there is the Hungarian proverb, praise the day when the sun goes down.
You know, I enrolled my beautiful girls in jiu-jitsu.
Ask questions.
I'm going to get to the questions. I'm just leading up to it. I enrolled them in jiu-jitsu a week and a half ago. They're now on their 3rd or 4th class. It's a beautiful thing. The only issue is I have to take them now on Wednesdays, which is today. And it's even more work than I already do. But, you know, it is the #1 self-defense martial arts for rape and sexual assault, and I want my girls to be able to defend themselves. And their brother, Judah Mack, who will be starting at the age of 3, which is the minimum age in a few months, he will be the UFC 155.
In May. Even if I have to live to be 120 to stop you from having him do the UFC, my grandson will not do UFC.
He will be the 155-pound UFC champion of the world. Judah J-Mac. Mac. We'll leave out Waldman because it'll throw people off. But he's got Latin blood in him, so this guy can do it.
How about his other last name? Okay.
On to the first question here. This comes from the lovely Vita Aaliyah, #the People's Champ.
7.5.
Why, when you flush toilets, do they spin in a circle? And is it true they go the other way on the bottom of the earth?
Yes, it's amazing. I learned this from Rita. If you watch the water running out of the sink on the northern hemisphere.
Can I confess one thing? She asked the first part of the question. I was asking the second. But go on.
Okay. On the northern hemisphere, it turns from left to right, or vice versa, and on the southern hemisphere from right to left, or vice versa. In other words, in two opposite directions in the two hemispheres. It must have something to do with the gravity or something.
Carole Baskin seemed, for someone who is
she was a lovely person
for someone,
to interview.
that's accused of murder. I just don't see it. But murder's like what were we just talking about? They come in all shapes and sizes, like Jewish people who could be murderers. But she seemed like a genuinely sweet person. The interesting thing about her is she was very reserved, right? And you and I are a little opposite of that. But I noticed that she
appreciated that. She didn't like pull away or say, "Oh, they're disgusting" or something.
She was kind of looking at us like we were caged animals. Do you feel that way? She was
No.
like, "Wow, these are weird people."
No.
No?
No.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay, on to the next question.
I don't feel. She got it, I think.
Z-Bugs has
whatever there was to get.
ZZ, also known as the pint-sized pugilist.
She just turned 6, going on 12.
How does the sun rise up, and how does the moon rise up?
Well, it is all related to us, the Earth, going around the sun, but going also around itself, around its axis, north-south. So when we are turned away from the sun, you understand, then we don't see the sun. During that 24-hour period, when we are turning away, we don't see it. Here is the sun. Here we are. When we are on this side, turning, then we turn like this. During any 24-hour.
You know what's weird is if I'm not interested in something like this, I just
why
pay
did
no
I buy,
attention.
But you should be interested. I got them an Earth, Moon, and Sun book.
They'll be reading it. She had another question.
You should read it to them, and maybe you learn it,
She had
Joel.
another question. How does a cruise ship with so many people move?
Very big engine.
And it floats on the water. How does something so heavy float? That's my question.
I don't know.
I think it has to do with density and water, and once again, I will defer that to my friend Matt Bardot. He would understand that. Karm, by the way, there's this sensation taking over the world called Wordle. It's a word game which I don't understand. Have you seen this?
No.
You'll see it and you will hear of it. It's kind of like a crossword puzzle. The whole world is playing it, and they all talk about it on social media. It's one
May
of these.
I say something?
Yeah.
I want to thank you.
There's one more. You didn't. My son Judah has a question.
Oh.
Judah insists, who is 2.5 and talks a lot, insists on asking a question. His question last week was, how do you put Ethel in your vroom vroom? That is a car for all of you dum-dums. His question this week was, that was Ethel. This week his question is, how do you put Mabel in mommy's vroom vroom?
You mean you have to pick her up? She's so old.
She's old.
Because they're two different questions. He's not stupid. One just leaps and jumps in, and the other one you literally have to pick up because she's so old. She's 16.
I almost started to tear up. It was, in fact, Mabel Rose's Sweet 16 this last week. Thank you for bringing it up, Carmel. Happy birthday to you.
Okay, relax. It's not funny. May I say something,
yes,
Joel?
This is the end of the show.
I wanted to do something that is very unusual.
I know what it's going to be, because there's only one thing that's unusual, and that is you complimenting me for something.
Exactly.
See? I knew right away, because it happens once every decade or so. Please go ahead. For this, I will extend the show. Too bad there's one person still watching, but go on.
Anyway, I want to thank you for introducing me to all sorts of interesting new things, because, for example, without you, I wouldn't know about Wordle. Now I'm going to Google it and find out about it.
Not Wordle, but Verdle. Also,
how do you spell it?
Word L-E. Word L-E.
Wordle.
So it's not Virdle. It's not Verdel. It is Wordle.
Now he's playing superior.
The other thing is, we're a year into this. I just got as Carole Baskin. Shout out to Steve Cohen of Next Horizon Media, who's a dear friend who helped in this endeavor. But we're getting big guests, and this podcast is going to blow up this year. I work on this 24/7, and the effort will pay off.
As blow up as an explosion when everything burns down?
Blow up as in Joe Rogan's going to be checking out what kind
if I hear, it's a very, you are promoting him.
I'm like Ahab, I'm not promoting him.
But no, you are promoting him. Like I keep telling you, every time you mention him, you do advertise for him.
He doesn't need my advertising, but
he may need your one. It doesn't hurt him.
Karm, I got to go wire money at the bank, which really relaxes me.
I love you, America, as Joel says. I also feel the same way.
Hey, be nice to a big cat. Don't pet it, and
be nice to your husband or your wife also.
100%. Love you, America.